Hi, everyone. I'm Keith Mathis. Welcome to another version of 7 Minutes to PMP Mastery. We are a premier ATP with the Project Management Institute. Our video today, as we look at the PMP exam, is tackling those hard questions that pop up on the exam. So, how the PMI exam thinks. This is an important piece of information because this is a test like no other test you've ever taken. This test is scenario driven and it has typically more than one right answer. So you're being asked for an answer, but you're trying to come up with what is the best answer, not a right answer. And so, since you typically have at least one, sometimes two or three right answers, you're trying to come up with what are they asking me. So if you keep missing PMP questions on all the practice tests, it probably has nothing to do with your knowledge, but your approach at catching those triggers of what they're really asking in the question. So PMP questions are what you should do next type of situations. They're going to ask you, what should you do next? What would you do next? What would the project manager do? You never answer this what you would do in real life. You answer it based on the perfect situation, based on the process, based on the next steps. And so you're going to pick your option looking for something that's proactive, ethical, and team-centered. As long as you have those anchors in there, this will help you get rid of a couple of the answers in most cases. So if a stakeholder complains, the best move is usually clarify, collaborate, and act. They'll typically have answers in there to where it wants you to escalate that to someone else. Escalation is typically not what you're wanting to do. So practice questions that actually improves you. So doing 1,000 questions does not help you if you review it wrong. All it does is confuse you more and guarantee that you're going to ask other questions. So out on the web, you'll find people giving a lot of questions away. I would not use any of those because many of those questions that people are just throwing out on the web, unless those are current with the new test, those questions can be dated back 2 or 3 versions. I'm talking about years ago, and some of these folks are still throwing those out on the web. So review this in 3 parts. So when you start looking at a test question that you've missed, why is it correct, and why is it wrong, and what rule did you miss? And that's what you're going back to, because you have the knowledge to take the test, but a lot of times you get tripped up on that fundamental piece of why it's right, why it's wrong, and what am I missing here. So if you miss escalate, for an example, try team plus analysis before any type of escalation. So we don't mean that you never escalate. Of course, there are some things in opportunities you're going to escalate. In high risk threats, there might be a reason to escalate, but that's not your first step. Typically, the project manager and the team have a lot of power on this test. So that's what you're wanting to do is you escalate, but it's only after the team and analysis has happened, and then you would escalate something. Eliminate wrong answers. So kill answers that blame, skip the process, ignore stakeholders, and jump to escalation. None of that's going to be right at that particular point. So if the option says report the team member to HR as a first move, it's usually wrong. And the reason is because you've got a lot of steps that you would be doing as a project manager in the team before it ever got to HR. So that's typically never going to be the right answer. Contact the product director and have them fix it. None of that is typically right. Here's some red flags that will help you. If an answer says always or never, you need to pause and read that really close because always and never, that's very emphatic. And so that's typically not how the test question or the right test question it needs to be. Absolute language is often wrong because the PM decisions are always going to be situational. You're looking at the situation, you're analyzing the situation, and you're coming up with your answer. So always and never are going to be a problem. So that typically tells you, okay, there's something wrong with this question. So always escalate to the sponsor is rarely correct as the first step. And the reason is because where is your responsibility? Where's the team's responsibility? What have you done? Have you confronted in the right way, obviously? Have you confronted? Have you talked with the people? Have you talked to the stakeholder? All of those are going to be very important. And then escalate versus collaborate. Escalation is not leadership. It's a last resort tool. That's why escalation is not typically the right answer. Collaboration is always a right answer to put together on this test. Escalate when you've clarified, analyzed impact, tried collaboration, and you're blocked, or it's a governance decision. Any of those kind of pieces, then escalation is going to be fine. But apart from that, you still are going through the process. You're still clarifying, analyzing, talking, trying your best to collaborate with that person before escalation. So here's another example, the vendor failure. First, meet, assess, propose options. If it's a contract breach persists, then you would escalate. So you see how many things you've already done before you ever get to escalation. So watch the escalation idea. What should you do first, trap? So they're not asking you what you would do. They're asking you what the process would do, what the steps would be. The most wrong answers are correct, just not first. And so when they're asking you what would come first, this is a very difficult one because you've got a lot of the components, but you don't have the very first step. First steps are usually going to involve several pieces, such as clarify, assess, impact, consult the right people, and then act. So don't automatically pick one that's going to have you acting first because you haven't done any of those previous pieces that's going to connect to that. An example would be quality issue is reported. First, verify and analyze, not redesign everything. And so a lot of times people say, well, I'd redesign everything to make sure it applies to quality, but you didn't verify it, you didn't analyze it, you did not collaborate with the team. You jumped automatically to redesigning it. So it's that kind of feel that you will have. So let me close out with this. So as you can see, these test questions are very difficult. And so one of the things just to keep in mind is you're not always going to escalate. Also keep in mind that there's two right answers. You're looking for the best answer. And when you're reading these, make sure that you're looking, that you understand the steps of what they're asking you. What is that question really asking you? And you'll do good on the test. And when you take practice tests, as you should be, from your provider, then one of the things that you would do, any test question you miss, you need to look at it and see, why did I miss it? Was it a process and I thought it was an activity? Did I get the wrong process in the wrong place? Trying to figure out, why did I actually miss that while you're prepping for that test, and that will help you in these areas. Now let me close out with this. Listen, we do PMP boot camps every other month. I'd love to have you in here, and I teach it, so I'd love to have you in one of the boot camps. If I can help you in any way, contact me by email or by phone. Also, if you have any other questions about this, don't hesitate to send me an email. I'll be glad to get back to you. Hope this helps you a little bit as you analyze those hard questions. Bye now. See you later.